Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our BDO COVID-19 Management Survey webinar. We're just going to wait a couple of minutes and give everybody a chance to make sure they've been able to get into the webinar room. So I'm just going to go on mute now, and I'll be back with you in a minute. If you haven't already grabbed a cup of coffee or grabbed a cup of tea, go and do that now, and we'll be with you in a minute. Okay, so good morning again, everybody. We've now got quite a few of our expected attendees in the room, so we're going to kick off with our session. So today is all about the most topical conversation I think that's going on in the world around COVID-19 and really around how we as organisations are responding to the challenges that our different companies are facing. So we're going to look at the survey results and key insights into how Australian organisations are managing COVID-19. Today, you're with myself, Janine Waters. I'm the partner leading our People Advisory team here in Sydney for BDO. Marianne Carter is our Associate Director of People Advisory and Kelly Mitchell, our Manager. So between us all, we have, oh, sorry, Marianne.
Just saying hello to everyone.
So just to give you the heads up here, like many people across Australia, we are all working remotely, and this will be the first time my team and I have managed a webinar like this where we're not in a room together facing each other. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I am sure we will have the occasional hiccup as we go, but hopefully you will all bear with us on that. Just to sort of give you a bit of an idea of what we do here in our People Advisory team, we have all sorts of capabilities and skills that span across looking after culture and engagement within organisations, capability and skill development, change management, coaching and leadership development, and HR services more broadly. So between the three of us here, we have a fairly broad range of skills, and we also have the rest of the People Advisory team supporting us behind the scenes, and you'll get to see who they are and their capabilities later on in today's session. A little bit of housekeeping. You can access the presentation slides in the handouts pane that you can see, and the example on the right of the screen here, hopefully. All submitted questions, we will try to actually respond to them during the webinar today as much as possible. Normally we wait until after, but if we can make this as interactive as possible, we would like to do that. For any questions that we can't get to during the session, we'll respond to them afterwards. We do need to be careful that we're not trying to give legal advice today, because that is not our core skill set, but what we can do is share what organisations are doing in our experience at the moment. So more than happy to answer any questions along that line. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please visit /support.logmeininc.com/go-to-webinar. After the webinar, you're going to be sent a follow-up email, and that'll contain our presentation slides, a link to the recorded session, access to any of our past webinars, and the opportunity to register for future webinars, and also our contact details. Now, if the questions that you're really wanting to have answered today aren't mentioned or aren't answered today, or you don't get a chance to ask them, please do contact us. We are more than happy to help every one of you in whatever way we can, as we all manage through this very different and challenging time for all of us in our organisations. So our purpose for today, first of all, we're going to have a quick look at COVID-19 around the world and look at what it's meaning for organisations. We're going to go through our survey results and share some insights. So whilst we'll be sharing some of the numbers and stats from our survey, what we're also going to spend quite a bit of time is looking at examples of what different organisations are doing. For those of you who are in your emergency response teams or working as leaders throughout your business, I'm sure understanding how other organisations are responding to this is top of mind in looking at how you're supporting your business and your employees. And then this is really about our time now, and we're going to talk about the fact that really none of us have all the answers for this, so how we come together and connect and learn is critical to navigating through our response to this pandemic. So I'm going to introduce Marianne now. Marianne's going to take the lead on sharing the insights that we have, and Callie and I will be bringing through examples through the whole session today. So Marianne, over to you.
Thank you, Janine. Okay, so we're just going to take a brief look on what's happening around the world. And as we do that, what we just want to say is we recognise that we are in a pandemic, something that many of us have never experienced before, nor have we experienced the breadth of how many countries and people and different areas of our life that are actually impacted. And what it means from a leadership perspective is that people are looking to leaders for answers. And what we want to say to you is it's okay that you don't have all the answers, and really reaching out and talking and listening to what's happening is a wonderful way to start to navigate through this. As you're working within your organisations, and even as you're living in today's society, the impact on our lives is really quite vast and great. And so even from a work perspective, if you feel as though everything's going well, please keep in mind you may also be experiencing close family members or friends that you know whose lives have been impacted financially hugely or health-wise. So it really is a time of great ambiguity as people try to work out where do they go and what needs to happen. And as we navigate this, what's happening out in the marketplace is that innovation is beginning to move forward. The way that we're forced into thinking differently and behaving differently overnight is both tiring and exciting at the same time. So just keep in mind that as you're moving your organizations through and you're trying different things, emotionally it can be anywhere from exciting to tiring for your people and for yourself, and you've just got to keep moving forward. And just keep in mind that, quite frankly, we're in a space where we are writing history, and people will be telling stories generations to come.
And Marianne, can I just add at that point?
Yes.
I just wanted to add, I think you're absolutely 100% correct in regards to a moment in time. It's a moment in time where we're all dealing with, I guess, right now, as in what is actually happening in regards to the coronavirus, but we'll also be in a moment of time where we go through the aftermaths of that too. So what will that actually look like for this country and the world as we actually, you know, rebuild our lives, I guess, as well after that. So it's almost like two different stages that we're really rewriting history at the moment about.
True, Callie. So true, Callie. And this photo just lifted my spirits when I saw it. It was a flash mob that was organised over in Italy during their lockdown. And even though people are away, they came together via music. And I just thought it was very powerful and wonderful to see. So as we move forward now, what I want to start sharing with you are the results from the survey. So as we look at the results and what's there, I'm just showing you a snapshot of the different industries that have responded. So these are the industries we're going to be sharing with you what they are saying they are doing in this current environment. So 27% was from financial services, 15% not-for-profit, and the 24% was others, the other tall block. And then you can see how the others are moving along. And then in regards to employee headcount, just so you're able to see the different things that they're doing, there's actually a lovely mix of the different headcount across the different organisations. And when we asked where the head office was, the majority were in New South Wales, and then we had Queensland and Victoria.
And Marianne, I think what's really important to take from that is as we go through and look at the results from the survey, we do really have organisations from as small as 2 or 3 employees to organisations with more than 5,000. So the way they're responding to this will be very different, and there'll be different ideas that we present today and discussions that we have that will be more or less relevant depending on just how big your organisation is. And also looking at those different industries, there's very different impacts. You know, we're talking to organisations who have an ability to fully work remotely, like in our instance at BDO, 95% of our workforce can work remotely, right through to organisations like manufacturing, where clearly they have very different implications for their workforce and are having to manage things very differently. So I think it's important to understand that as we go through and look at these results, and we're going to talk and bring to life as much as possible examples of how different organisations are managing those different scenarios.
Thanks, Janine. And just to give us a segue into that, I'm just going to top line these results. We've asked companies, okay, do you have a COVID-19 action plan? 74% said they do, and 26% said they did not. Now, we'll talk about what that action plan looks like. They then said that the basis of the action plan actually came together from a company-wide perspective, 75%. 5% said HR were planning those plans, and 20% said that they had a task force in place. And when asked whether or not employees could work from home remotely, 56% said yes, but actually quite a few said they could not. So I think we just take a moment to pause here and start talking about what it is that's happening out in the marketplace and what people are putting in place. So from some of the examples that people were giving, they're saying that as much as possible, they are asking people to work from home. They've also limited the amount of people coming in to work, and this was a week and a half ago, and more people are shutting that option down in terms of allowing visitors to come in. Organisation, yeah.
Sorry, Mary. I was going to say, I think that's been really strong when I'm talking to all of our different client groups, wherever possible. What I'm seeing is leaders are really stepping up and taking on a very proactive approach to this and really trying to shut down their organisations' offices as much as possible. I know in BDO we did that last Tuesday. We started to strongly encourage people to work from home, and by Friday we were saying there should be no reason you're in the office unless there's a specific urgent issue that has to be dealt with. And we're seeing that across the board with those organisations who can work remotely, which is really powerful. Another thing I would say is in talking to our risk management team, what I'm hearing is those organisations who had done the work previously on their business risk assessments were very quick to be able to pull into place a business impact assessment and to be able to shift and start to implement some of their measures. So we saw very quickly those organisations were saying, yes, we've got a plan and we're able to follow it. Whereas many organisations who hadn't done that pre-work were the ones that were really trying to get something together as quickly as possible and start to think about all of the different ways that this pandemic could impact their organisation. So we were definitely seeing organisations being able to respond very quickly if they'd invested time previously to prepare for it.
You know, that's an interesting point, Janine, that I'd like to just say. If you are one of the organisations that have had to move very quickly now to get working from home happening, please keep in mind that it's a time where people are going to be trying new things. It may not work the way it did work in the office. People may be grieving their office space. People are now working in homes with all the kids home, or they're sharing apartments with people that they live with. It's a time where people need to be listening to their employees and understanding what works and what doesn't work. And simple
And
things. Go,
as
Carly.
part of that too, I think, Marianne, it's really strong, and I know we'll talk about leadership in a moment. Then some of the information that I've seen that's been shared is that managers are still having these expectations that they still have to do 8 hours a day of work. And I guess we also sort of need to navigate through this is that, well, what does everybody's actually working style look like? As they work from home, are they actually able to log on at 9 o'clock and log off at 5 o'clock? Or is there an opportunity to actually think more broadly around that and make sure that they're actually managing it through their own family commitments, their own household demographics that you've mentioned, and all of those sorts of different areas. So just bearing in mind that I guess it's really not about the hours anymore. It's also about the output, but also, understanding that leaders too, like this is quite challenging for everybody. So where they may not be performing at 100% right at the moment, have the confidence to know that, when things start to settle down, things go a little bit more smoothly, then they can actually, go back to performing at their 100%. But certainly some managers have been that I've seen have been really hard on their employees and really tough, as in, really quite demanding in that they log on at 9 o'clock, they're there at 5 o'clock, they're available at any moment of the day to take calls, to answer their questions, and to show what they've actually done. And I just don't think that that's really necessary, possible to continue to do so in these times.
That's interesting, Carly, because if you think about it, when you're in the office, you're not always by your phone, are you? You're in meetings,
No.
you're walking around. So there is a level of managing that energy and knowing what works for your employees. And back a week and a half ago, 27% of organisations that actually still had some of their operations open were banning non-essential visitors. So for those of you on the call that are still open in some parts or areas, whether you be manufacturing or your critical services, your ability to really work out who needs to be on your site, and if they're coming on your site, how you ensure or try as much as possible to keep them, the distance, the cleanliness for your staff and also for them as well. So what we're talking about here is overnight our mindsets are shifting, and there's a lot emotionally that we need to deal with. A lot of us are activating new technologies that actually we've never used before, and we're having to learn how to connect in a different way. And when it comes to connection, what the survey is saying is 45% of organisations are actually communicating via the internet. That is how they're getting material out to their employees. 81% are saying they're using email and newsletters okay, now this is what we're moving to. And 39% are saying what we are starting to do now is actually put webinars up for training and education. So whether that's about mindfulness, you are at home, we need you to manage your energy, these are the types of things you need to do. Or we are now using a particular platform, this is how you go about using it. So organisations are using different mediums to connect and give communication to their people. In addition to that, go.
Sorry, Marianne. I think what I'm experiencing here as well when I speak to our clients and colleagues around the world is really the importance of thinking around change management as you go through this, because things are moving so quickly. We're using different technologies. I know for us, we're working across 3 different platforms in any given day, depending on our clients and our individual team needs. So there's actually a huge uptake for these technologies and a significant appetite for individuals within the organisation to learn how to use these technologies more effectively. And it's harder sometimes to disseminate the information when you do have, copious unread emails in your inbox and you're not sure if people are tapping into it. So thinking of different ways to communicate with staff and being clear in your stakeholder engagement and change management through this time. We've seen organisations who are doing that effectively are definitely seeing that that responsiveness within their teams from that.
So, Janine, when we're talking about effectively, what are some of the tips we can give the listeners that they can actually take on board?
So I guess the first thing is around looking at multiple channels. So we always make sure now when we're doing different communications out that we're not static in the way that we're doing that. So we do emails because some people like them, but we're also seeing a lot more Skype meetings, webinars that are being sent out, those sorts of things. Secondly,
I was just going to say I'm also seeing what BDO are doing in terms of taking the pulse of their employees, really simple questionnaires. And so there's two-way communication.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. You know, we found in the first week, so I'm sitting on our emergency response team, and we found in the first week we were trying to actively reach out as much as possible via our partner groups and managers to hear about what was happening. But it became apparent very quickly that we needed to replicate, I guess, some of the different ways we might have done some of the things we used to do. So in the past, to take the pulse, I might have walked around the floor and just had a quick chat with a few people, and you can sense the vibe in the organisation. We can't do that now. So now a pulse check is really helpful, and we send that out Monday, Wednesday and Friday with a couple of really quick questions. We ask people to give us one word as to how they're feeling, and we do a quick word cloud on that, and we can sense we can check the pulse according to the different teams, and I think that's really helpful. Even different things like we would normally have a Friday night drinks, and I know our team this week we're going to do it anyway via a Skype meeting. It won't be the same, we know that, but people really appreciate that they're being reached out to in different ways from their leadership teams, and I think that's really coming through in all of the organisations I'm talking to.
Yeah, and I might just share a bit more just for those of you that still have offices that are open, what other people are doing. And that is when they're getting visitors in, they're asking them to fill out whether or not they have travelled, where have they been, to actually work out whether or not they will allow them onto the premises. For those organisations that have cafeterias open, some of them have begun to just close that down just so that there's not too many gatherings and the production of food is maintained. So yeah, there's just a few things people are doing that I just wanted to share as well.
I think that also too,
Marianne.
Sorry, Janine.
I was just going to say there's also a lot of organisations doing A shifts and B shifts. So a week on or a week off for those organisations who can't work remotely. What we saw in talking to different organisations, there are some risks that people aren't quite considering there. So for one organisation I know we talked to, they had separated their payroll team into two sections, which was great. Unfortunately, they hadn't put them in different buildings, and they're still using the same facilities. So understanding that that's still a risk, and if you are separating A teams and B teams, whether it's from a timing perspective or whether you're putting them in different locations to manage your risk around that, you need to be very clear about what are the recommendations that you're making to ensure those teams never actually cross paths, and to ensure that they are not sharing any space where the virus might actually be shared. And even working in manufacturing organisations, we're seeing where they're going from A shifts and B shifts. It's really important to make sure that any handovers are virtual, and that any break rooms that they're using for the two teams are either separate break rooms or are being thoroughly cleaned between teams. And that's really just about making sure that what we don't have is an entire part of the business needing to go into self-isolation and therefore having to shut down that part of the organisation.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll just move to this next slide. So what this talks about now is remuneration. We wanted to share with you what some organisations are thinking about. So one of the questions, if the government decided to go into lockdown, will employees be remunerated? You can see there clearly for permanent, people are saying yes. However, there's also an indecision in terms of we're not sure what we can and cannot do. Would you look to reduce allowances to keep other employees in a job? What we're seeing is 26% are saying yes, 30% are saying no, and 44% are saying, actually, I'm open, I'm not sure. And then what we've got is the temporary reduction of fixed remuneration, whether or not you would actually change someone's base salary. So what we're going to do is now walk through some different examples of what the different companies are doing and how you look at it. But the one thing we definitely want to say to you is this is now not the time to withdraw. This is the time to actually connect with anyone in your organisation or anyone that you've worked with that is a trusted advisor or a partner. That for you could be someone in finance, it could be HR, it could be legal, it could be people like us at BDO, people that you know that will challenge your thinking and help you plan for different scenarios. Because each scenario planning that you're doing needs to be in line with the appropriate laws, whether that be the contractual obligations you've got to your employees, any awards, or any EBAs that you've got in place. But to plan different scenarios is actually very powerful and will allow you to look at what can happen. Janine, do you want to give just a few examples of that?
Sure, absolutely, Marianne. So first of all, I will say that, again, I'm reaching out to people every day to find out what challenges organisations are facing, and there's still a lot of uncertainty. I know that Callie and I did quite a bit of research for some of our clients in terms of understanding, well, can you use carers leave? Can you use, how do you define when a person should be provided with leave without pay versus when an organisation should be paying for them if they're standing them down, etc. And there was a lot of ambiguity, even looking at Fair Work. There's been some great work done by some of the different legal groups to really try to help articulate that. So I know one that I've used a few times now is Hall & Wilcox. If you go onto their website, they've done some really great analysis of the different options. What I'm hearing from most of our organisations is the first thing that they've gone to is stopped variable incentives and just held off on those until they understand what the impact of this is going to be on organisations. So we're seeing that pretty consistently across the organisations that we work with. The second thing is a really strong approach from most organisations to try to give appropriate options for employees according to their personal circumstances. So for some, that might be them tapping into annual leave, looking at different ways that long service leave can be accessed and managed, providing carers leave where people are sick, but also then there's lots of debate and consideration around at what point does the fact that carers leave can be provided when an organisation, when an individual has an emergency situation, and what constitutes an emergency in caring for family members is hotly debated at the moment, and organisations are trying to work through that for their employees. I think that's the major ones that are coming through for me. I'm not sure if you've heard of any more, Marianne.
Yeah, so the respondents are actually also talking about, so we've got some manufacturing and wholesale businesses that are saying that they're looking at, because their business is being impacted, they're looking at moving full-time people to 3 days a week. And then they've got a plan to possibly move that lower. Now, what we just want to say here is it's fabulous that you're looking at these different things, but you want to make sure it's in line with your award, any contracts you've got in place, and you just need to be working with people to help you navigate all those areas.
And the other part to that, Marianne, that's really important is a lot of the information that is coming from our employment lawyers and from Fair Work Australia is that because there is so much uncertainty, it's really just down to having those conversations with the employees and making sure that you're just not making a decision that where you haven't actually consulted your actual employees. So as long as you actually consult your employees, you get their understanding, you get their buy-in, you get their thoughts, you get their ideas, it's really important as you navigate how you're going to, I guess, cover some of these areas is that you draw in those employees and their opinions.
That's a great point.
That's a really important scenario, because a lot of what we're talking about here in terms of requiring employees to reduce to part-time, etc., if they're not done properly, they can trigger things like a requirement for redundancy. So it's very important that you get advice before you start down that path, and that you do consult heavily. Now, for the most part, what I'm seeing in talking to employees across different organisations as well is a really strong willingness to support companies. They want to make sure that their companies remain viable, because they know that that ensures that their jobs remain viable. So there's a great deal of willingness to step up to the plate for a lot of people. But how you do that as an organisation, the approach that you take is critical to make sure that you get a good outcome there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also too, when we talk about partnering with the trusted advisors, you know, if you don't have a trusted advisor, we're here at BDO and the People Advisory team, we're more than happy to actually have some of these initial conversations with you and bounce ideas and share our ideas. So if you're sitting there thinking, oh, that's all great, but I don't actually know who to turn to, we within the People Advisory team are more than happy to actually, discuss anything that might be on your mind.
And just know that we are national. We are national, and if you've got even tax questions or any areas that you need help with, we can actually help you. It's okay to pick up the phone and get your questions answered.
To be clear, the People Advisory team won't be advising you on tax, but we do have partners in those areas.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Marianne.
You would go to the relevant partners. And then just what we're saying here is that we've asked the question, do you have people-related policies to manage any talent risks due to slowdown of work or anything impacting your business? And what we want to talk to you about here is the ability of your task force or your management team to really understand at its very skeleton. So this is part of scenario planning. At its core, what is your critical offering? So is it that you build buildings, and in that there are particular engineering skills that you need to keep going? So the way that you would look at this is you would say, for us to continue through this, there are critical things we will give to the market. Once you identify that, you need to look at the teams that deliver those critical services, and then understand the people within those teams that have the specific skills that you need to deliver on it. So while you may have a team of 10, there might be 3 individuals there that are key to actually delivering a particular product or a particular service. And this falls as part of your different scenario planning.
I think that's a really important point, Marianne. You know, it's such an uncertain time for organisations, and for some organisations, let's be clear, this is has been an amazing increase in their business. So they're looking for talent, and they're trying to make sure that they're retaining their key talent through this. For other organisations, they may be looking at how they keep their business going, and if there's a downturn in business or a downturn in cash flow that impacts their ability to trade through this time, they might be making decisions around who is critical to retain through that period. Some of the discussions we're having with organisations is really along the lines of, we know that we will come through this. We know that when the economy starts to pick up, we will have some amazing opportunities as an organisation. What will hold us back is if we have, in some way, shape or form, damaged our relationship with our employees through this time and damaged the trust. We will lose talented people when they can find other jobs. And also, if we do lose people during this time and we don't have the right people ready to take on board those opportunities when the uplift occurs, we will impact our ability to take advantage of that new business. So it's really important to understand that, yes, we need to deal with the immediate issues. Yes, we need to make sure we're managing our cash flow and we are behaving in a way that ensures the long-term viability of our organisation. But we also need to behave in a way that engages with our talent in the best way that we can and protects the skill sets that we'll need when we come through the other side of this.
Very well said, Janine. So as we move forward and we look at what this means for us, there's a few things that we would like to say, and that is, as leaders, we ask you to lean in and your people are asking you to lean in. So rather than withdrawing and not being sure, just know not everyone has all the answers, but the more that you connect with the teams that you work with, or even people externally, that is how you'll be in a position to make decisions and move forward. And making decisions don't need to be the big ones or the end game decisions. Making decisions are powerful even when they're small. So simple things like, tomorrow I'm going to be talking to our employees and this is what we're going to be sharing with them. Or tomorrow we're going to be making sure people have access to employee assistance programs. Whatever it is, each decision you make moves you and your people forward. The other thing we would say is really be clear on your values. So just to Janine's point before, your ability to come out the other end and be sure that you have behaved in line with your values, you've put processes and checks in place that allow you to do that, will be a very powerful thing for you when you come out the other side. And we're asking you to please manage your energy. So just as we were talking before, perhaps working the way we work in the office is not always right. And even for those of us that are managing people that are in offices and operations, really understanding what gives you energy, allows you to move forward, take a break, walk away, do some exercise, have a cup of tea, whatever it is that rejuvenates you is very important to keep you going and keep your people going. And we just want to say we are in a place where we are writing history together.
Thank you, Marianne. And I'm just going to take this time to pause and say, if anybody has any questions that they'd like us to respond to now, by all means, post them. I think you should be able to see somewhere on the right-hand side of your screen a box that you can write a question in. Otherwise, you can email them to us afterwards. The other thing I just wanted to say, just building on what you said, Marianne, is what I'm seeing from leaders who do lean in and who do really, I think, come across as really authentic, is those leaders who are able to reach out and say, yeah, actually, I have stressful moments with this as well. It's not all positive. Working from home has its challenges. Dealing with all of these issues has its challenges. And not always just putting a brave face on it, but also saying, yep, I have my moments. But two, recognizing that this too will pass, and as we are saying, we are writing history together, and at some point in the future we will be reminiscing back on this time. And what I hope more than ever is that leaders who really can step up during this time, and not necessarily leaders of people, like everyone in our organisation is a leader. So whether you have direct reports or not, it's an opportunity for you to step up and reach out to other people in your team and make sure that you're supporting them and helping them with managing their energy as well, and supporting them in the decisions that you need to make as an organisation. I know for some businesses, those decisions will be much tougher than for others. So I think it's important as well to reach out both internally and externally, as we spoke about before. Having people to lean on and get advice from is critical during this time.
Thanks, Janine.
I think also too, with making those decisions and moving forward, it's okay to make a decision and then change it and make another decision. Even our leaders from our government perspective are making decisions and then the next day changing their minds. So we're all navigating this through in this uncertain times together. So I think to Janine's point, where our leaders are really strong, we obviously don't want to be chopping and changing all the time, but it's okay to be real and realistic that, you know, you don't have all the answers. Things will have to change as they come into actual events in regards to lockdowns and things like that. So I think it's just really important that you don't get too hung up on that you've made a decision and that's the only decision that you can possibly have.
Yeah. And even, yeah, perfect.
So this is my team. This is the people advisory team here at BDO. What I did want to just touch on as well, to Marianne's point earlier, is we do have a much broader team available to you in BDO. Yeah. We have experts across every aspect of running a business. Whether you're facing challenges around how to look at your cash flow right now and how to best navigate through those issues, whether you're looking at what some of the government incentives are from a tax perspective, and understanding how to apply those within your business. We have experts in all of those areas. We have business experts who really focus on organisations that are finding it very tough and might be heading down the insolvency path. And we also have amazing strategic advisors that can help you if your business is in fact going through a boom time through this and is looking at how they capitalise on that opportunity and support their business through growth. We have our audit team as well who can support you in understanding where your processes are at. And we have our risk advisory team who have done a huge amount of work in this area, and in particular Sean Pascoe, who leads part of our risk advisory team, has a lot of experience in managing through pandemic. So we have a huge amount of support available to you if you need it. By all means, contact any of us in the BDO People Advisory team as a first step, and we are really happy to connect you with the people that can help you in your business right now.
Yeah, thanks, Janine. That's very well said.
So here's our standard disclaimer. I will just reinforce that during this time we are not lawyers, so please don't take anything we have said as legal advice. Please make sure that you follow up with your legal advisors if you're planning on doing anything that might impact an employee's contracts, remuneration, etc. However, if there is anything that we can help with, we are very happy to do so. We thank you for your time today. Thank you to Marianne and Callie for putting all of this content together. And again, specific questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.